The council chamber was silent when Ambassador Thalrex entered. His 4 arms trembled slightly as he walked toward the speaker's platform. Around him, the representatives of 47 species watched with worried eyes. Something was very wrong, and everyone knew it. Thalrex looked at the empty seats where the human delegation used to sit. Those chairs had been vacant for 50 years now. He remembered the last time he saw humans in this room. He remembered their faces. "We have lost contact with 12 more colonies," Thalrex announced. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "The medical supplies have run out. The equipment is failing. We need solutions." Councillor Morvan stood up from his seat. The tall, blue-skinned Krillian looked tired. "Solutions? We had solutions. They left 50 years ago." The chamber erupted with angry voices. Some councillors shouted at Morvan. Others looked down at their desks in shame. Thalrex raised 2 of his arms for silence. "Let us not pretend anymore," Thalrex said quietly. "We all know why we are here. We all know what we lost." He activated the holographic display. Images filled the air above the council floor. Charts showed declining medical care. Graphs revealed failing infrastructure. Numbers told a story of slow collapse. "It started small," Thalrex continued. "A vaccine that stopped working because we could not replicate the formula. A water purification system that broke down because no one understood the design. Trade routes that dissolved because there was no one to mediate disputes." He paused and looked around the chamber. "We did not notice at first. Humans were quiet workers. They did not demand attention. They simply did their jobs and kept our civilization running." Thalrex remembered the day everything changed. 50 years ago, almost to the day. The human ambassador had come before this very council. Her name was Jiwon. She had short dark hair and tired eyes. Behind her stood Captain Hyunwoo, a military officer with a grim expression. "Honored Council," Jiwon had said, her voice steady despite obvious stress. "We come requesting aid. The scourge has attacked our outer colonies. 20 million humans are in danger. We need military support and medical supplies." Thalrex had been younger then, more arrogant. He had looked at the human ambassador with barely concealed contempt. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had only joined 30 years before. Their technology was adequate but not impressive. Their military was small. "Ambassador G1, Thalrex had replied from his position as council speaker. "The council must consider resource allocation carefully. Your species maintains only primitive military capabilities. Committing council forces to your conflict would be inefficient." He remembered how Jiwon's face had remained calm. No anger, no pleading, just a slight tightening around her eyes. "I see," she had said softly. "And the medical supplies? Many of these colonists are children." "The council's medical stockpiles are limited," Morvan had added. Back then, he had agreed with the majority. "We must prioritize established members." Captain Hyunwoo had whispered something to Jiwon. She had nodded slowly. "Thank you for your time," Jiwon had said. She bowed slightly in the human custom. Then she and her delegation had turned and left the chamber. That was the last time Thalrex saw humans in the council building. Within 72 hours, every human diplomat, worker, and visitor had left council space. They withdrew from every treaty. They canceled every contract. They took all their research, all their data, all their technology. And they said nothing. No angry speeches, no threats, no explanations. They simply left, as quietly as ghosts. "We thought they would come back," Thalrex said to the assembled council. "We thought they were bluffing, trying to get our attention." "They got our attention," Morvan said bitterly. "Just 50 years too late." The holographic display changed. It showed a human medical facility that once operated on Veltara Prime. Dr. Suman had worked there. She had been a short woman with quick hands and a brilliant mind. She had developed vaccines that saved billions of lives across Council space. After the humans left, the Council had tried to continue her work, but the formulas did not work without proper understanding. The techniques failed in alien hands. Within 10 years, diseases that had been extinct began returning. "We never credited her work," Thalrex admitted. "We published her research under Veltarian names. We told ourselves that knowledge belonged to everyone." The display shifted again. It showed infrastructure projects across dozens of worlds. Human engineers had designed the systems. They had made old alien technology work better. They had connected species that barely understood each other's science. Engineer Dae-hyun had been responsible for the main power grid on 3 major worlds. After he left, the grids began failing. The Council brought in their best engineers. They studied the designs for years, but they could not understand the elegant simplicity of Dae-hyun's work. He had built systems that adapted and learned. Without him, they slowly died. "We took everything," Morvan said. "We took their ideas, their work, their inventions. We gave them nothing in return, not even respect. And when they needed us," Thalrex added, "we turned them away." The Council chamber was silent again. Everyone knew the truth now. The collapse they were experiencing was not random. It was not bad luck. It was the absence of humanity. "We have tried to contact them," Thalrex said. "For 50 years we have sent messages. We have searched for their colonies. We have offered apologies and trade agreements." He paused and his voice grew heavy. "They have never responded, not once. It is as if humanity has vanished from the galaxy." Admiral Kessathar, a massive Draxian with scales like armor, stood up. "Then we must find them. We must make them return." "Make them?" Morvan turned to face the Admiral. "We cannot make them do anything. That is the lesson we should have learned." "We need them," Kessathar insisted. "Billions are dying. We have the right to demand their help." "Do we?" Thalrex asked quietly. "Do we really?" He thought of Jiwon's face, that calm professional expression, that slight bow before she left. She had not begged. She had not wept. She had maintained perfect dignity, even as her people died, and the Council had dismissed her like she was nothing. "We will search for them," Thalrex decided, "but not to make demands. We will search to ask forgiveness, and to offer what we should have offered 50 years ago. True partnership, true respect." "And if they refuse?" someone asked from the back of the chamber. Thalrex looked at the empty chairs one more time. "Then we face the consequences of our choices, as we should have done long ago." The Council session ended. Preparations began for an expedition into unknown space, but Thalrex could not shake one thought from his mind. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was watching, and they were saying nothing at all. The plague arrived on Veltara Prime during the night cycle. At first, the doctors thought it was a common illness. By morning, they knew they were wrong. Counselor Morvan stood in the hospital corridor, watching through the transparent walls as patients filled every bed. The disease moved fast, fever, then paralysis, then death. The doctors had seen it before, but that was 60 years ago, before Dr. Suman created the vaccine. "How many?" Morvan asked the chief physician. 2,000 infected, 500 dead. The physician's hands shook as he checked his data pad. "The vaccine stores are empty. We have been trying to make more, but the formula does not work." Morvan closed his eyes. He remembered Suman. She had been patient with everyone, always willing to explain her work. But after she left, the Council had tried to reverse engineer her vaccines without understanding the underlying principles. They had the recipe, but not the knowledge. "What about the other worlds?" Morvan asked. "Reports coming in from everywhere. The plague is spreading through Council space. Without the vaccine, we have nothing." Morvan walked away from the hospital. Outside, the city looked normal. People went about their business, not yet knowing how bad things would become. But Morvan knew. This was just the beginning. His communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Kesithar. "Turn on the news feed," the Admiral said. Morvan activated his holographic display. The news showed images from the agricultural world of Praxis 7. The crops were dying. Fields that had been green last week were now brown and withered. "The soil is failing," the news reporter explained. "Scientists say the terraforming is reversing. They do not know why." But Morvan knew why. He remembered engineer Dahyun explaining it once, years ago. Human terraforming was not just about changing soil. It was about creating balanced ecosystems that maintained themselves. The systems needed constant small adjustments that only humans seemed to understand. "We are losing 3 agricultural worlds," Kesithar said through the communicator. "Food supplies will run short in 6 months." "It gets worse," Morvan replied. He pulled up more reports on his display. "The trade routes are collapsing. Without human mediators, old disputes are resurfacing. The Corvin Syndicate and the Prelian Union almost went to war yesterday over a shipping lane." For 50 years, humans had been the quiet diplomats. They had no enemies because they treated everyone fairly. When disputes arose, both sides trusted human judgment. Now those disputes had no neutral voice. Kesithar growled. "We are falling apart." "Yes," Morvan agreed. "We are." He thought about how it had happened. The humans had not sabotaged anything. They had not destroyed their work before leaving. They had simply taken their knowledge and stopped helping. And without their constant, invisible maintenance, everything they had built was failing. On the mining world of Kedrath, the excavation equipment had stopped working. Human technicians had modified the machines to work in the planet's high gravity. The modifications were elegant and simple, but no one else could replicate them. The mines were closed now. Thousands were unemployed. On the hub station Nexus Prime, the air recycling system was failing. A human engineer named Hae-un had redesigned it 20 years ago. She had increased efficiency by 40% and reduced maintenance needs. But now something was wrong, and no one knew how to fix it. The station would have to evacuate soon. Everywhere Morvan looked, he saw the same pattern. Humans had improved things, fixed things, made things work better, and they had done it so quietly that no one noticed. Until now. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was Ambassador Thalrex. "I need you in the council chamber," Thalrex said. "We have something." Morvan arrived to find the chamber half empty. Many counselors were dealing with crises on their home worlds. Thalrex stood at the speaker's platform with a holographic star map floating above him. "Our intelligence service found something," Thalrex said. He pointed to a region of dark space beyond the outer rim. The last known coordinates for human ships. They were moving into unexplored territory. "How long ago?" Morvan asked. 48 years. Kesithar entered the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing. "Then we go after them. We send a fleet. We bring them back." "Bring them back?" Morvan stared at the Admiral. "You cannot be serious." "We are dying," Kesithar said flatly. "They have the knowledge we need. We take ships, we find them, we negotiate." "With warships? With enough force to be taken seriously?" Thalrex raised 2 of his arms. "Counselors, please, we are not considering military action, but we must make contact. We need answers. We need help." "They do not want to help us," Morvan said quietly. "We made that very clear 50 years ago." He remembered that day again. Jiwan standing before the council, asking for help for her people, and the council saying no. Not with anger or regret, just cold calculation. Human lives were not worth the resources. "What happened to their colonies?" Morvan asked. "The ones the Scourge attacked?" Thalrex looked down. We do not know. Our records show the scourge overran the region. After that, nothing. 20 million people, Morvan said. We let 20 million humans die because helping them was inefficient. The chamber was silent. And now we want their help, Morvan continued. Now that we need them, we suddenly remember they exist. What choice do we have? Kesethar demanded. Pride will not save billions of lives. Neither will demands, Morvan shot back. Do you really think they will help us because we show up with warships? Thalrex touched the holographic display. It showed images recovered from old human databases, medical facilities, engineering projects, agricultural programs, decades of human work throughout Council space. Look at this, Thalrex said. Every project listed a council member as the lead researcher or engineer. But humans did the actual work. We took credit for everything they accomplished. He pulled up patent records. Medicine developed by Dr. Suman was registered under Veltarian names. Technology created by engineer Dehyun was credited to Krillian companies. Agricultural techniques were claimed by council scientists. We did not just ignore them, Thalrex said. We stole from them. Morvan felt sick. He had signed some of those patents himself, years ago. At the time, it had seemed reasonable. Knowledge was meant to be shared after all, but they had not shared. They had taken. We need a plan, Kesethar said, though his voice was less aggressive now. We need to be honest, Thalrex replied. If we find them, we cannot pretend this is just a misunderstanding. We wronged them, deeply, and we need to admit that. Will admission be enough? Morvan asked. No one had an answer. Thalrex looked at the star map again. The dark space beyond the rim looked vast and empty. We prepare an expedition, half military for protection, half diplomatic for negotiation. We follow their trail. And if we find them, we do not demand. We ask, we apologize, we offer what we should have offered from the beginning. And what is that? Kesethar asked. Respect, Thalrex said simply. True respect, not the kind we give with words while stealing their work. Real partnership, real equality. Morvan looked at the empty human chairs again. Do you think they will listen? I do not know, Thalrex admitted. But we must try, because the alternative is watching our civilization crumble, knowing we caused this ourselves. The council voted to approve the expedition. Ships were prepared. Diplomats were briefed. Medical supplies and gifts were loaded as offerings. But as Morvan left the chamber, he could not shake a feeling of dread. They were looking for humanity in the darkness. But what if humanity did not want to be found? What if the silence was not just absence, but a choice? What if the humans were out there, watching the council collapse, and simply deciding that some lessons needed to be learned the hard way? The expedition fleet moved through dark space like ships sailing on a black ocean, 50 vessels in total, carrying the council's hopes and fears into the unknown. Ambassador Thalrex stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the view screen that showed nothing but stars. How long until we reach the coordinates? He asked. 3 days, the navigation officer replied. But Ambassador, we have found something. The view screen changed. It showed a small structure floating in space. A station, perhaps, or a waypoint. It was definitely human design, with the clean lines and efficient shape that marked their architecture. Finally, Admiral Kesethar said. He stood beside Thalrex, his scaled hands gripping the rail. We are close. But as they approached, Thalrex felt wrong about the structure. It was too clean, too perfect. There was no debris, no signs of life, no communication signals. Scan it, he ordered. The results came back quickly. It is a waypoint station, the tactical officer reported, but it has been deconstructed. Everything valuable has been removed. Only the basic frame remains. They sent a team to investigate. When they returned, they brought puzzling news. The station had been taken apart piece by piece with care and precision. Every component, every system, every bit of useful material had been removed. What remained was just an empty shell. They did not abandon it, Counselor Morvan said, studying the reports. They dismantled it on purpose. They found more waypoints over the next 2 days, 7 in total, all of them stripped clean, all of them left as empty markers like gravestones in the void. They are covering their trail, Kesethar growled. They do not want to be followed. Or they are taking everything with them, Morvan suggested. Every resource, every piece of technology. They are not leaving anything behind. Thalrex looked at the pattern of waypoints on the star map. They formed a path leading deeper into unexplored space, but the path was growing cold, 50 years cold. On the 3rd day, they reached the coordinates from the old intelligence reports. There was nothing there, just empty space and distant stars. "Spread out," Thalrex ordered. "Search the entire sector. There must be something." The fleet divided and began scanning. Hours passed with no results. Then a science vessel detected something unusual. An object, very small, moving through space on a slow trajectory. "Bring it aboard," Thalrex commanded. The object was a probe, human design, but newer than anything in the Council's records. It floated in the examination bay, silent and inactive. Engineers studied it carefully, afraid to trigger any defensive systems. "There is a data core," one engineer reported. "It appears to be waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For us, I think." They activated the probe carefully. Its surface lit up with soft blue light. A holographic projector came online, and suddenly, a woman stood before them. She wore a simple uniform with captain's insignia. Her name tag read Una. She looked to be in her 40s with short hair and calm eyes. The hologram was just a recording, but it felt like she was looking directly at Thalrex. "Greetings," Captain Una said. Her voice was professional and courteous. "If you are seeing this message, it means you have followed our trail into this sector. We want you to know that we appreciate your persistence." She smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in it. "Humanity has relocated," she continued. "We have taken all our people, all our colonies, all our resources, and moved to a new region of space. We have deconstructed our way stations and removed all traces of our presence in Council territory. This was done with great care and planning." The hologram paused, as if Una was choosing her next words carefully. "You taught us an important lesson 50 years ago," she said. "You taught us the value of self-reliance. You taught us not to depend on others for help. You taught us that we must stand alone. We are grateful for this lesson." Morvan flinched at the words. They were polite, but their meaning cut like a knife. "We do not wish to be found by random search," Una continued. "We do not wish to be tracked or followed. However, we understand that you may wish to make contact. Therefore, we are providing coordinates for a single meeting point." A set of numbers appeared in the air beside her hologram. "You may send a diplomatic vessel to these coordinates. We will meet you there in 7 days. This is not a negotiation about returning to Council space. This is not a discussion about resuming old agreements. If you wish to speak with humanity, come to this meeting point. If you do not, then please respect our decision to remain separate." Captain Una bowed slightly, the same way Ambassador Jiwan had bowed 50 years ago. "We hope you are well," she said. "Goodbye." The hologram disappeared. The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at the space where the woman had stood. Finally, Kesethar spoke. "This is ridiculous. We should track the probe's origin point, find where it came from." "No," Thalrex said firmly. "But we need to know where they are." And they have made it clear they will not tell us, Morvan added. This probe is a test. If we try to track them, if we try to find them against their wishes, we prove we have learned nothing. Thalrex looked at the coordinates Una had provided. We go to the meeting point. We send a small diplomatic ship as they requested. Not a fleet, not a military force, a single ship. That could be a trap, Kesethar warned. Then it is a trap, Thalrex said, but I do not think so. Did you listen to her words? Did you hear what she did not say? What do you mean? Morvan asked. She did not threaten us. She did not demand apologies. She did not express anger. She was professional and courteous. That is so much worse than anger. Morvan understood. Because anger means there is still emotion, still connection. But courtesy means they have moved on, Thalrex finished. They do not hate us. They have simply decided we are not worth their time. The fleet returned to council space. Thalrex spent the next few days preparing for the meeting. He chose a small diplomatic vessel, comfortable but not luxurious. He selected a minimal crew, and he chose his delegation carefully, himself, Morvan, and Admiral Kesethar. Why me? Kesethar asked. I wanted to track them. They will not want me there. Exactly, Thalrex said. We need to show them all of us, not just the politicians who can speak pretty words. They need to see the ones who wanted to hunt them, the ones who still do not fully understand. That is how trust begins. They departed on schedule. The journey to the coordinates took 4 days. As they approached, sensors detected a ship waiting for them. It was small, like their own vessel. Human design, but again, newer than anything in council records. Elegant and efficient. It did not power weapons or shields. It simply waited. They are hailing us, the communication officer said. Accept, Thalrex ordered. The view screen showed a man in a simple uniform. His name tag read Minho. He looked young, perhaps 30, with a neat appearance and professional manner. Welcome, Minho said. His tone was polite but distant, like a hotel clerk greeting a guest. Please follow our ship to the meeting station. Maintain a distance of 10,000 meters. Do not deviate from the course we provide. Understood, Thalrex replied. Thank you for meeting with us. Minho nodded slightly but said nothing more. The human ship turned and began moving. The council vessel followed. They traveled for 2 hours before reaching the meeting station. It was a neutral structure, built in a style that was neither human nor council, simple and functional, a place for business, not friendship. We will dock in Bay 3, Minho instructed. Please limit your delegation to 5 individuals. No weapons, no recording devices beyond personal notepads. Agreed, Thalrex said. As they prepared to dock, Morvan approached Thalrex. This feels like attending a funeral, he said quietly. Yes, Thalrex agreed. The funeral of what we could have been. They docked. The airlock opened, and beyond it, humanity waited to hear what the council had to say after 50 years of silence. But as Thalrex stepped through the airlock, he could not help wondering, would words be enough? Could apologies repair what had been broken? Or had humanity moved too far away, not just in distance, but in their hearts? The answers waited on the other side of the door. The meeting room was plain and simple. White walls, a long table, comfortable chairs. Nothing fancy. Nothing that suggested either wealth or poverty. It was a space designed for business, nothing more. Ambassador Thalrex sat on one side of the table with Councillor Morvan and Admiral Kesethar. Across from them sat 3 humans. In the center was a man wearing a formal diplomatic suit. His name badge read, Seojun, Chief Negotiator. He appeared to be in his 50s, with gray hair and steady eyes that revealed nothing. To his right sat a woman in a medical officer's uniform. Dr. June, her badge said. She held a data pad and watched the council delegation with professional interest. To Seojun's left was a younger man in a military uniform. He was introduced as a security liaison but gave no name. He sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table. "Thank you for coming," Seojun said. His voice was calm and measured. "Please, tell us why you wish to meet." Thalrex had prepared a speech. He had practiced for days, but now, looking at these three humans, the words felt hollow. He decided on simple truth instead. "We need your help," he said. "Our civilization is failing. Medical systems are collapsing. Infrastructure is breaking down. Agricultural worlds are dying. We have lost the knowledge that humanity provided, and we cannot recover it alone." Seojun nodded slowly. "I see. You have my sympathy. System collapses are always difficult." That was all. Just sympathy. No offer to help. No questions about details. Just polite acknowledgement, like someone hearing about a stranger's misfortune. "We came to ask if you would consider helping us," Morvan added. "We know we do not deserve it. We know we wronged your people, but billions are dying." "I understand," Seojun replied. His expression did not change. "That must be very difficult for you." The silence stretched. Thalrex felt his frustration growing. This was not negotiation. This was not even conversation. It was like talking to a wall that occasionally said polite things. "What do you want?" Thalrex asked directly. "What would it take for humanity to help the Council?" "An interesting question," Seojun said. He leaned back in his chair. "But perhaps you are asking the wrong thing. The question is not what we want. The question is whether we have any reason to help you at all." Dr. June tapped her datapad. A holographic display appeared above the table. It showed medical records, research papers, and patent filings. "This is my mother's work," she said quietly. "Dr. Suman, perhaps you remember her." Thalrex felt his chest tighten. He remembered. "She developed 17 major vaccines and 43 medical treatments during her time in Council space," June continued. "She saved an estimated 4 billion lives across multiple species. She asked for very little in return, just recognition and fair credit for her discoveries." The display changed, showing patent records. Instead, every single one of her treatments was registered under Veltarian names. Her research papers were published with Council scientists listed as primary authors. She received no credit, no acknowledgement, nothing. "We did not know," Morvan said weakly. "Yes, you did," June replied. Her voice remained professional, but there was steel beneath it. "My mother filed complaints. She submitted formal protests. She followed every proper channel. Each time, she was told that knowledge belonged to the galactic community, that personal credit was less important than shared progress." She pulled up more records, engineering projects, agricultural developments, navigation systems, hundreds of examples of human work credited to Council members. "This was not an accident," June said. "This was policy. You took human innovation and claimed it as your own. Systematically, for decades." Kesathar's temper finally broke. "So this is revenge? You let billions die for revenge?" The young security officer moved slightly, but Seojun raised a hand. The officer settled back into stillness. "Not revenge," Seojun said calmly. "Self-preservation. We learned that the Council could not be trusted, that we would be used, exploited, and dismissed. So we left. After you denied us help," Morvan said, "when the scourge attacked our colonies." "Yes," Seojun agreed. "I was there. I was a junior diplomat in Ambassador Jiwon's delegation." He stood and walked to the window. Beyond it, stars shone in the darkness. "I watched Ambassador Jiwon ask for help," Seojun continued. "She was professional. She was respectful. She presented all the facts and all the reasons why the Council should act, and the Council looked at her like she was wasting their time." He turned back to face them. Do you know what happened to those colonies? To the 20 million people who died? Thalrex felt sick. No. My daughter was on one of them, Seojin said quietly. She was 6 years old. Her name was Minseo. She wanted to be a scientist like Dr. Sumin. The room was completely silent. The scourge killed everyone, Seojin continued. His voice never rose, never broke. By the time we gathered enough forces on our own, it was too late. 20 million humans died because helping them was inefficient. I am sorry, Thalrex whispered. Are you? Seojin asked. Or are you sorry that you need us now? There is a difference. He sat back down. Let me tell you what humanity did after we left. We found other species, other outcasts, and dismissed peoples that the Council considered unimportant. We built an alliance. We shared our knowledge freely, with full credit and recognition. We created something better. Dr. Jun pulled up another display. It showed star maps, dozens of worlds, all marked with human symbols. We call it the Outer Compact, Seojin explained. 27 species, all working together as equals. No one steals credit. No one dismisses calls for help. Everyone contributes. Everyone benefits. You have built a rival to the Council, Kesthar said. We have built what the Council should have been, Seojin corrected. Morvan leaned forward. Then why meet with us at all? If you have moved on, if you have built something better, why not just ignore us? Because ignoring problems does not solve them, Seojin replied. And because some of us still believe the Council can change. Not all of us. Many wanted to refuse this meeting, but I convinced them to give you one chance. What kind of chance? Thalrex asked. Seojin placed a data chip on the table. This contains a proposal. Humanity will return to Council space. We will share our knowledge again. We will help repair the systems that are failing. We will provide medical aid and technological support. Hope flared in Thalrex's chest. But then he saw Seojin's expression and knew there was more. In exchange, Seojin continued, the Council must restructure completely. Humans will have equal representation at all levels of government. All past human contributions will be acknowledged and credited properly. All species will have equal voice, not just the founding members. And most importantly, the Council Charter will be rewritten to make it illegal to dismiss any member's call for help. You want to change everything, Kesthar said. Yes, Seojin agreed. Because your system is broken. It was broken when you denied us help. It was broken when you stole our work. It is still broken now. If we return to the same system, nothing will change. He stood again. You have 30 days to decide. Accept our terms, and humanity will help rebuild. Reject them. And we go our separate ways permanently. There will be no second chances. No more meetings. No more discussions. And if we cannot decide in 30 days, Morvan asked. Then you have decided, Seojin said simply. The choice is yours. But understand this. We do not need you. You need us. That is why we can make demands. That is why we can set terms. Dr. Jian gathered her materials. The security officer stood. The meeting was ending. Wait, Thalrex said. If we accept, if we change, will you truly forgive what we did? Seojin paused at the door. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. We can work together. We can build something better. But we will never forget what happened. We will never forget Minseo and the 20 million others. We will never forget how the Council treated us. He looked back at them. The question is whether you can accept working with people who remember your mistakes. Whether you can accept being equals instead of superiors. That is what you need to decide in the next 30 days. The humans left. The door closed. The 3 council members sat in silence. Finally, Kesthar spoke. They are right. Thalrex and Morvan looked at him in surprise. Everything they said, the Admiral continued. They are right. We were arrogant. We were cruel. We deserved this. So we accept their terms? Morvan asked. We do more than accept, Thalrex said. We embrace them, because they are offering us something we do not deserve. A second chance. They took the data chip and returned to their ship. As they left the station, Thalrex looked back at the human vessel. It remained docked, waiting patiently, not chasing them. Not demanding an immediate answer, just waiting, with all the quiet confidence of people who knew they held all the power. And for the first time in 50 years, Thalrex felt hope. Not because the Council was strong, but because perhaps, finally, they were ready to be humble. 1 year later, the Council chamber looked different. The seats had been rearranged. Where once the founding species sat at the center, now all species had equal position in a circular formation. New chairs had been added. Human chairs. And they were not empty anymore. Ambassador Seojun stood at the speaker's platform, sharing the position with Ambassador Thalrex. They wore similar formal robes now, marking them as co-speakers of the Reformed Council. It had taken months of debate and restructuring, but the old council was gone. Something new had taken its place. Today marks the first anniversary of the new covenant, Seojun announced to the assembled delegates. 1 year since humanity returned. 1 year since we began rebuilding together. Thalrex looked around the chamber. The changes went deeper than new chairs. The entire government had been reformed. Every committee now required representatives from at least 5 different species. Every decision needed majority approval, with no single species holding veto power. And most importantly, emergency aid requests could not be denied by vote. They were mandatory. The work has been difficult, Seojun continued, but the results speak for themselves. A holographic display activated, showing statistics from across council space. Medical systems restored, infrastructure repaired, agricultural worlds thriving again. The numbers told a story of recovery. But Thalrex knew the real story was more complicated. The first month had been the hardest. When humanity's terms became public, many council members had been outraged. They called it humiliation. They said humanity was conquering them without firing a shot. Some species threatened to leave the council entirely rather than accept equal status with humans. Councillor Morvan had worked tirelessly during those weeks. He traveled to dozens of worlds, speaking to leaders, explaining why the changes were necessary, not because humans demanded it, but because the old system had been wrong from the beginning. We built a hierarchy, Morvan had told them. We put ourselves at the top and everyone else below. We wonder why it collapsed, but the answer is obvious. You cannot build a civilization on inequality. Slowly, species began to agree. Some because they saw the wisdom, others because they were desperate, a few because they had been on the receiving end of council arrogance themselves and wanted revenge. But agreement was only the first step. When humanity returned, they brought others with them. The outer compact species, the ones humanity had befriended during their 50 years away. 27 species that had been dismissed or ignored by the council. Now they joined as equal members. The chamber had to be expanded twice to fit everyone. Admiral Kessathar had struggled the most with the changes. He was used to military hierarchy and clear chains of command. The new consensus-based system frustrated him, but he learned. And when the Krillian colonies faced a natural disaster 6 months ago, he was the first to volunteer the Draxian fleet for rescue operations. No debate, no vote, just help. That was when Thalrex knew the changes were real. We have also begun the Historical Accountability Project, Seojun said, pulling Thalrex's attention back to the present. Dr. Jun will explain. Dr. Jun stood and activated a new display. It showed the corrected historical records, every human contribution from the past decades, properly credited now. every stolen patent returned, every piece of work acknowledged. This is not about blame, June explained. This is about truth. Future generations need to know what really happened. They need to understand how we got here, so they never repeat these mistakes. The display showed Dr. Suman's work, with her name prominent on every vaccine and treatment. It showed Engineer Dae-hyun's infrastructure designs, properly attributed. It showed hundreds of other humans whose quiet work had kept the council functioning, but it also showed the council members who had stolen that work. Their names were there too, marked as falsely credited. It was uncomfortable truth, but necessary truth. Some have called this punishment, June continued, but it is not. It is simply accuracy. History should be accurate. A new voice spoke from the audience. And what about our history? A young human stood. His badge read, Jinseo, Representative, Nova Colony. He looked to be in his 20s, part of the generation born after the Exodus. Counselor Jinseo, Seo-jun acknowledged. Please, speak. Jinseo walked to the center of the chamber. I was born during the Exodus. I never saw the old council. I only know stories from my parents. They told me about the 20 million who died, about Ambassador Jiwon's rejection, about the 50 years of silence. He paused and looked around at all the species present. They told me to remember, to never forget what happened. And I will not forget. None of my generation will forget. Thalrex felt the weight of those words. This young human carried no personal anger, but he carried memory. And memory was powerful. But, Jinseo continued, they also told me to judge people by their actions, not their past. And I have seen the Council's actions this past year. I have seen species helping each other without being asked. I have seen former enemies working together. I have seen real change. He turned to Thalrex. Ambassador Thalrex came to our colony last month. He did not have to. There was no political reason. He came to lay flowers at our memorial, the memorial for the 20 million. Thalrex remembered that day. The simple stone monument, the names carved in metal, 20 million names. He had stood there for 3 hours reading them. It was the least he could do. He wept, Jinseo said quietly. I saw him. An alien who once dismissed us, weeping for our dead. That is when I understood that change is real. He looked at Seo-jun. My parents' generation cannot forget, should not forget. But my generation can choose whether to forgive, and I choose to try. The chamber erupted in approval. Not everyone, but enough. It was a beginning. After the session ended, Thalrex found himself alone on an observation deck. The stars looked the same as they always had, but somehow different too. More welcoming, less lonely. Thinking deep thoughts? Morvan asked, joining him. Thinking about how close we came to losing everything, Thalrex replied. If humanity had not been willing to give us another chance. They almost did not, Morvan said. Seo-jun told me once that the vote to return was very close. Many humans wanted to stay away forever. What changed their minds? Hope, the belief that we could be better. That is humanity's greatest strength, I think. Not their intelligence or their engineering, their hope. Thalrex watched a ship pass by the window. It was one of the new joint operation vessels, crewed by a dozen species working together. Impossible a year ago. Normal now. Do you think it will last? He asked. If we work at it, Morvan replied. Change is not something you do once. It is something you choose every day. In the medical bay, 3 decks down, Dr. June worked alongside a Veltarian doctor. They were developing a new vaccine together, with both their names on the research. Equal credit, equal respect. In the engineering section, teams of humans and aliens rebuilt a power system. Engineer Dae-hyun's son, Taewon, supervised the work. He explained his father's designs to eager students from 5 different species. Knowledge shared freely, the way it should have been all along. In the diplomatic wing, Ambassador Seojin met with representatives from a newly discovered species. They were nervous, unsure if they belonged in the galactic community. He assured them they did. Every species belonged. That was the whole point. And in his quarters, Admiral Kesethar reviewed security reports. But these reports were different from the old days. They tracked not threats, but cooperation, joint operations, shared resources, mutual aid. He had spent his whole life preparing for war. Now he spent his time maintaining peace. It was strange work, but good work. Months passed. The new covenant grew stronger. More species joined. More reforms were implemented. The Outer Compact merged fully with the Council, bringing their fresh perspectives and innovative ideas. And slowly, carefully, humanity began revealing the full extent of what they had built during their 50 years away. The colonies they had established, the technologies they had developed, the alliances they had formed. It was impressive. More than impressive. It was stunning. "We could have been enemies," Seojin said during one council session. "We could have returned as conquerors. We had the strength, we had the reason, but we chose partnership instead." "Why?" someone asked from the audience. Seojun smiled. "Because conquest is easy. Building something together is hard, and humans have always liked challenges." On the anniversary of the new covenant's 2nd year, they unveiled a new monument in the council plaza. It showed 2 hands clasping in partnership. One hand was human, the other was shaped to represent all council species. Engraved at the base were 2 simple lines: "In memory of what was lost, in hope of what can be built." Ambassador Jiwon attended the ceremony. She was old now, retired from active duty. But she stood straight and proud as the monument was revealed. Beside her stood Captain Yunwoo, also retired, also proud. They had lived to see the apology. They had lived to see the change. They had lived to see humanity return not as beggars, but as equals. Thalrex approached them after the ceremony. "I never properly apologized to you," he said. "Not personally, for that day in the chamber, for dismissing you, for failing your people." Jiwon looked at him with those same steady eyes from 50 years ago. "You apologized with your actions," she said. "That is the only apology that matters." She offered her hand. Thalrex took it. 2 hands clasping, just like the monument. Different species. Equal respect. As the ceremony ended and people dispersed, young Jin Seo stood looking at the monument. An alien child approached him, curious. "Why did humans come back?" the child asked. "If we hurt them?" Jin Seo thought about the question. He thought about his parents' stories. He thought about the 20 million names on the memorial. He thought about the new world they were building together. "Because staying away would have been easy," he finally answered. "And humans do not do easy." He smiled at the child. "Come on. Let me show you the new library. It has books from 30 species now, all different, all equal, all amazing." They walked away together, one human and one alien, toward a future that neither of their ancestors could have imagined. A future built not on dominance or submission, but on the simple, radical idea that everyone deserved respect. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, in the quiet spaces where humanity had hidden for 50 years, the lights of their colonies burned bright. Not as a threat, not as a challenge, just as a reminder. Humanity was here. Humanity was strong. And humanity remembered everything. But they also believed in second chances. And that belief, more than any weapon or technology, changed the galaxy forever.